31년 된 파머스 마켓이 있어요. 말이 안 되는 거거든요. 우리나라에서는 찾아보기 힘든데 뭐 미국에서는 이렇게 오래된 역사를 자랑하는 곳이 많습니다. 그런데 포틀랜드 주립대학교 안에서 오랫동안 여러 밴드들과 함께 지속가능한 농부 장터를 펼치고 있는 KT를 모시고 제대로 된 이야기를 한번 들어보겠습니다. 자, 한번 가보시죠. 자, 도감독도 같이 해야죠. 입회! 수회!
So my name is Katy Kolkernen, and I'm the Executive Director of Portland Farmers Market, and I'm going to tell you a bit about our organization, sort of our mission and our 5 markets, as well as our structure and functions of our organization. I'll tell you a little bit about our history. I wanted to focus today on talking about about our vendors at our markets and how we support our vendors. Talk a little bit about our community impact, and if there's time for questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions. So Portland Farmers Market is a nonprofit organization, so we're not affiliated with the city. We're an independent organization. All nonprofit organizations in the United States have a mission statement. So our mission is to operate farmers markets that contribute to the success of local growers and producers, and create vibrant community gathering spaces. So really our purpose is to support the vendors that are a part of our market. So we're actually a business association, and so we're really here for the success of our vendors. And we do a lot to try to listen and learn from our vendors as well as the communities around our markets to make sure that our markets are places where vendors prosper and communities thrive. So we operate 5 farmers markets in Portland. The market that many of you were at on Saturday is called the Portland Farmers Market at PSU. This is the largest farmers market in Oregon. It is open every Saturday, year-round, even when it's cold and rainy, and it's been in operation for 31 years. We have this year 146 total vendors at the market. In our peak season, we have up to 10,000 shoppers come through the market on any given Saturday. The market is on public property, which is through Portland Parks, and it's also on the campus of PSU. All of our markets are really unique and have different sort of groups of shoppers. So at this market, it really draws shoppers from all around the city as well as visitors from all around the world. We have one other downtown market, which is actually very close by. It's just a few blocks north. It's called the Szymanski Park Farmers Market, and this market is on Wednesdays. It's in our downtown cultural district, so it's right between our art museum and sort of a large concert hall. It's open midday on Wednesdays, so a lot of the shoppers at this market are people who live downtown or work downtown and come during their lunch break. It's been in operation for 25 years, and we have 38 vendors and about 2,400 shoppers per day. In addition to people who live and work in downtown, we also have a lot of chefs from restaurants who shop at this market. So a lot of chefs from downtown restaurants or restaurants throughout the city come to this market to purchase their ingredients for that weekends and the week at their restaurants. So that's a really special attribute of this market. We also operate 3 markets on the other side of the river in neighborhoods. So the King Farmers Market is our second largest market after the PSU market. It's in a neighborhood in northeast Portland, and it's on Sundays, and it's been operating for 14 years. We have 44 vendors at this market and about 2,500 shoppers per day. This market has a lot of families. It's right next to an elementary school, and it's in a park with a playground, so there's a lot of public space that's used by the community there. Yeah, and then we have our Kenton Farmers Market in North Portland. This is a small market. It's been around it for 11 years, and it's in a small business district in a neighborhood, in the Kenton neighborhood. 20 vendors and about 1,900 shoppers per day. And this market actually operates on a street closure. So there's kind of one main street through the neighborhood or through the business district, and then the street that intersects it kind of in the center of the business district. We close on both sides of the street, and the vendors go just right along the street. And then finally, our Lentz International Farmers Market is in outer southeast Portland. It's been around for 17 years, and we have just been running it for about 7 years. It was started by a different nonprofit organization in the neighborhood. It's our smallest market. It has about 14 vendors. But this market is very unique because it really focuses on being a marketplace for immigrant and refugee business owners. So over half of the vendors at this market are recent immigrants or refugees. It's also open on Sundays, and it's our only market that's on private property. So it's a property that's owned by a restaurant next door. And we're really excited because this property recently got a large grant from the Public Development Corporation to develop that plaza into more of a community space. So in about a month, we'll move to this space, and it has a big covered area. It's going to be very beautiful, so we hope this market will expand. So a little bit about our organization. So we have a board of directors who provide oversight to the organization. They're all volunteers, and half of them are vendors at our markets. And we have a staff, actually we just hired a new part-time person, so we have 9 full-time staff members and 7 part-time staff members. The part-time staff members just work at the market, and then the full-time staff members manage sort of broader things. We have a lot of people who are really important parts of our market who are in other roles. So we of course have our vendors. We also have the people who we rent land from. We have a sister organization that I'll tell you about in a little bit. Most of our programming is done in partnership with other organizations. So we have those partners, and then of course we have shoppers. We have our volunteers who help out at the markets, and then we have sponsors, exhibitors, and grant funders. I'll tell you more about some of those stakeholders, but before I do, I wanted to share a few highlights. So the organization has been around for 31 years. The organization started in 1992 with just 13 vendors. So it started very small and has just grown over the years. We moved to the location at PSU in 1996. One important, interesting thing to note from the history is that the role of the farmers markets in our farm-to-table movement here in Portland. It essentially is restaurants who really highlight buying from local growers and really highlight seasonal ingredients. So it's a large movement where people are becoming more in tune with wanting to support local farms. So the farmers markets have played a big role in that, in being a place where chefs can meet farmers and make those connections. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is our SNAP matching program. So we're always working to make sure that farmers markets are accessible for everyone. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are living on very low incomes in our city for whom shopping at the farmers market isn't the most affordable option. So we started a program where we match SNAP, which some people know as food stamps. They're basically money provided by the government to support people to buy more in their food purchasing. And so we match those dollars. So if they bring $20 of SNAP to the market, we match it, so it becomes $40. So we started doing that in 2009 and eventually created a new organization just to raise money for that and to expand it to markets all around the state. The Farmers Market Fund is our sister organization, and now last thing I'll note here is that during the pandemic, farmers markets were designated essential services, and our farmers markets really played a huge role for our vendors in being a stable place to do their business. A lot of the farmers sold to restaurants, and when restaurants closed, the farmers markets really became their only outlet for selling produce. A little bit about our vendors. So this year, this year, we have 194 total vendors. 31 of those vendors are new to our markets, and the rest are returning. Our vendors apply in December for the coming year. Some vendors apply to just one market, some vendors sell at multiple markets. We, in selecting new vendors, are very careful in making sure that we have a diverse and balanced mix of products at our markets. And we have a number of requirements for people to be eligible to sell at our markets. One is that they have to be local, so they have to be based in Oregon or Washington. Each vendor will pay, when they are at the market, they pay a fee for each week that they're at the market. And the amount of that fee is based on many things. So we consider our vendors either farmers or non-farmers. About half of our vendors are farmers, but they make up about 60 to 70% of the stalls at our markets. So really our primary focus is supporting our farmer vendors. We have many different kinds of producers that are considered farmers, so everything from vegetables, fruits, nuts, herbs, meat, seafood, honey, flowers, and plants are all considered farm products. And farmers can only sell products that they grow, so they can't sell products from other farms. They are allowed to sell value-added products made from their produce, so if they make pickles or jam, they can sell those at the market too. And then non-farmers are the other half of our vendors. We have lots and lots of different types of vendors, but they're all food. It's all food products. Some farmers markets also have craft vendors, but our markets is just food. You can see the categories here. Some of the requirements for vendors at our markets is they have to source at least 25% of their ingredients directly from local farms. So this way every vendor at our market is supporting local farms. And they can only sell products that they make themselves.
포틀랜드 파머스 마켓 KT를 모시고 파머스 마켓에 대해 깊이 한번 파보겠습니다. 안녕하세요. 예. 이번에 제가 처음으로 새벽 6시부터 마칠 때까지 있어 봤거든요. 진짜 파머스 마켓의 에너지와 그 지키고자 하는 가치를 제대로 느껴볼 수 있는 시간이었습니다. 그래서 오늘 그런 가치와 에너지에 대한 이야기를 해보고 싶은데요. 몇 년 동안 일을 하셨다고 하셨죠? 파머스 마켓에서?
I have actually only been working with the farmers market for about 2.5 years.
오랫동안 하시면서 뭐 여러 가지 일이 있었을 텐데요. 기억에 남는 어려웠던 일이 있었다면 어떤 게 있었을까요?
Well, I joined during the pandemic, so there are lots of difficult and memorable experiences. You know, during the pandemic, our markets stayed open the whole time. We never closed because we're outdoors, and our markets actually became a really essential place for people to shop safely because it was outdoors, and also for our vendors to have a really stable place to sell, because a lot of our market vendors, especially the farmers, also sell to restaurants or other places that closed during the pandemic. So the farmers markets felt very essential during the pandemic, but we were always having to change and pivot based on what was happening. You know, requirements around masking and distancing and like food handling and all of this was sort of constantly changing. So that was a big challenge, and just wanting to make sure we were always keeping everyone safe, but you know, making sure our markets could operate.
그러면 그때 받았던 그 큰 위기죠. 뭐 그거는 모든 사람들이 받았던 위기인데 그때 혹시 배웠던 점이 있을까요?
There were a lot of lessons. Specifically, there were some things we started doing during the pandemic that we continued to do because it worked. There were some shifts in how the public perceived farmers markets, sort of shifting to a lot of people who started to see farmers markets as more critical to sort of community resilience. And so that was, I would say, a benefit to our vendors was really, I think, appreciation for small businesses really grew during the pandemic. And people recognizing their own role in supporting small businesses as sort of a responsibility. That if we want small businesses to be in our community, we try to support them. So realized our shoppers were holding even more strongly as a value coming out of the pandemic than they did before. And so wanting to sort of continue to communicate that to people as a reason to come to the farmers market.
파머스 마켓의 핵심은 커뮤니티라고 할 수 있겠네요.
I think so.
그러면 그 커뮤니티를 조직하고 만들기 위한 혹시 뭐 어떤 일상의 노력이라든지 이 파머스 마켓 사무국이 하는 활동들이 있을까요?
So as you know, we run 5 farmers markets. And so that looks different in the different neighborhoods based on the neighborhood, because each neighborhood is unique. So at some of our farmers markets, that is holding events where people can just gather, or having live music, or educational programming. We also work a lot with organizations and sort of community groups like congregations or other kind of community groups in the neighborhood outside of the market to find ways to welcome them to the market, or to have people come to the market and sort of showcase what they're doing in the community.
다양한 활동을 하네요. 그러면 본인한테 좀 묻고 싶은데 원래 커뮤니티에 관심이 많았습니까?
Yeah, so I'd say throughout my whole career, I've really been drawn to organizations that are sort of working at the intersection, community building, and sort of environmental sustainability and like equity and food justice. If you know what that term means. That's a big part of what brought me to Portland Farmers Market. I feel like at farmers markets, our community comes together around food and in just beautiful ways.
다양한 임팩트가 있고 목적이 있는 것 같은데, 그러면 지금 포틀랜드 파머스 마켓이 이 포틀랜드 지역에 끼치는 영향이 어떤 게 있을까요?
Yeah, so we talk about the impacts in a few different ways. We can talk about the economic impact. So last year in 2022, the total dollar amount of sales at our markets was about $9 million. And so that's $9 million that every single dollar went to a small farmer or a small business owner. And we know that when people spend money at local businesses, especially at farmers markets, then that money stays in the immediate community, as opposed to when people buy food at grocery stores, it goes to a large company that might be somewhere else in the country or else in the world. Economic impact is really significant. Also with food access, so we have about 500,000 people shop at our farmers markets last year, or 500,000 visits. So some people came multiple times. So many people who are directly accessing food right from the person who made it. Also have lots and lots of people who use food assistance. So here, low-income people who use what we call SNAP or food stamps to help supplement their nutrition. So they use that program to buy food at our markets, and then we match those dollars so they can buy even more. And I think there were about $200,000 in SNAP at our markets last year. So so that's another measure. There's a lot of ways to measure. I mean, we did a lot of educational programming, and so really teaching people through our programming, but also just through being at the market, kind of how food is grown, kind of where it comes from, helping people understand how to cook with seasonal ingredients or new vegetables they might not have seen before.
엄청난 영향력이 있네, 경제적 영향력까지. 그런데 이제 궁금해진 거는 원래 포틀랜드 사람이 로컬푸드에 대한 애정이 있었기 때문에 파머스 마켓이 지속 가능했을까요? 파머스 마켓 때문에 이 로컬푸드가 더 뿌리를 내리게 됐을까요? 본인 생각 어떠신지 궁금합니다.
I think both.
Both.
Yeah, I think both. So a lot of people in Portland who really value like supporting local business and environmental sustainability. I think that is what gave rise to farmers markets starting in Portland. Also, I think our farmers markets really helped to grow the awareness of understanding where food comes from and the value of sort of supporting farmers, and also the love of local food. You know, people understanding, a fresh tomato picked fresh off the vine is so much more delicious than one that was picked and shipped across the country. And around the time that our farmers market started in the late 90s was also around the time that this food movement in Portland really started to grow. And one of the things that I think was a big part of Portland Farmers Market's history is that at our downtown markets, that's where a lot of the chefs who later became very famous for their sort of farm-to-table restaurants.
Farm-to-table,
first started to connect with farmers and started to sort of tailor their menus to what was available at those farms and built those relationships. And so I think a lot of people see our two downtown markets as a big part of the growth of that movement.
당연히 이게 어떤 임팩트를 만들어내는 일이란 게 한쪽이 잘하거나 한쪽이 뭐 흐름이 있거나 해서 되는 게 아니고 맞물려서 돌아가니까 되는 건 맞는데 어떤 축이 더 동력을 가졌을까 궁금했던 거거든요. 일단 문화가 기반이 돼 있었다는 이야기고요. 까다로울 정도의 이 원칙과 기준이 있더라고요. 혹시 이것에 대해서 좀 불편함을 느끼거나 반대하는 밴드들이 있었던가요?
Yeah, so I would say we don't get resistance so much as sometimes it's just new for people and they might not be ready. Like for example, are requiring that all of the businesses at our market source 25% of their ingredients from local farms is new to people sometimes. Like they'll have a business that was not based on that model. And in order to be a part of our farmers markets, they basically will choose, yes, I want to do that, and then they'll sort of figure out how to make it work for them. Or they might say, that doesn't work for my business, and so they might apply to a different farmers market. So many farmers markets have similar qualifications for vendors, but not all of them. That's something that we think is important because our farmers markets are really here to support our farmers. So if we have food producers here who aren't supporting farmers, true to our mission, so a big one that sometimes is a barrier for people. We try to support people if they want to make that work, figuring out how to make it work, connecting them with a farmer who sells ingredients that they could use in their product, providing some opportunities through incubator booths for folks to sort of try out the market before investing in sort of that new approach.
단계적으로 갈 수 있는 마켓들이 단계별로 있네요. 뭐 인큐베이팅, 뭐 어드밴스 이런 게 있는 것 같은데 비율이 어느 정도 되죠?
Oh, that's hard. It's an interesting question. I don't think I have an answer for you. I mean, we have vendors from people in their very first years of business, and their business is very small, and maybe that market, farmers market, is the only market that they sell at. And then we have some businesses who started at the market very small but grew and now are selling, at grocery stores and much far beyond the market, but are still selling at the market as an important part of their business. A broad range, but I don't know off the top of my head what percentage are more at the beginning stage and what percentage are at the bigger stage. And I will say we have some vendors who start small and they want to stay small and they stay at a small scale for decades, and then we have some vendors who do aspire to be bigger businesses and are trying to grow.
이 전체 밴드 수를 좀 정해놓고 있는 것 같은데요, 맞습니까?
So here at the PSU market, we have 120 vendors, sort of on average, I would say, in peak season. We have, I think, 160 total vendors at PSU. Throughout the full year, but not all of them come every week. So we have some vendors who come once a month, So we have one stall where 4 vendors rotate out throughout the month. Yeah, and then our smallest market has just like 15 vendors.
15, 이 원칙과 가치와 원칙들이 세월이 지나면서 조금씩 변하고 쌓이고 지금처럼 정리가 됐을 것 같은데 초창기부터 지금까지 변하지 않는 원칙과 가치가 있다면 어떤 게 있을까요?
For vendors, I think a couple of the rules that have been really consistent for the past 30 years. One is just requiring that businesses are based in Oregon or Washington, so local, and also that they make or grow everything that they sell. And those have not changed. For sort of organizationally, in terms of kind of how we run farmers markets and things like that, there's a lot that's evolved over time based on the individual market. But yeah, I think there are small things that change every year. We have a set of sort of policies and practices and guidelines for our vendors in a big handbook. And every year we make changes to it based on like things that are evolving, but they're usually small things. So for example, this year, one of the things that we changed is there are a number of things that we look at when deciding when we have openings in our market, which vendors will get space, new space at our market. This year, we added some things to the published guidelines. So that's an example of things that might change more often over time.
Okay, I see. 일해 보시니까 어때요? 즐겁습니까?
Yeah.
어떤 포인트가?
I mean, it's just a joy and a pleasure to be at farmers markets and to support all of our vendors. And actually, one of the things that I want to add to one of your previous questions about kind of the culture of Portland and how it contributes to our farmers markets, or farmers markets contribute to it. A huge part of sort of, I would say, our culture and how farmers markets contribute to it is that we have, there are a lot of small business owners here and a lot of like people who are entrepreneurial or creative in spirit, and so you can really feel that in at our farmers markets, like people who have, you know, created their own business from scratch and just put their heart into it and love what they're doing and love sharing it with the community. So that's just, and people work so hard, and there's a strong sense of community among the vendors at the market and among the staff and also the, you know, regular shoppers. So that's really joyful, just to be part of that and to be supporting, you know, these places that bring a lot of people their livelihood and just bring a lot of shoppers just joy and sense of community.
파머스 마켓 합류하기 전에는 그럼 어떤 NPO에서 활동을 하셨죠?
For a long time, I ran a nonprofit organization that organized people around the city to harvest fruit trees that weren't being harvested and distribute the fruit to folks who needed it, like low-income families. And we grew sort of community orchards as well. So it was another nonprofit organization that sort of was trying to increase access to healthy food for lower-income people through fruit trees in the city. And then I've worked for some other nonprofits as well, in sort of like, in various other related fields, but that's where I was the longest before here.
보통 그 NPO 활동부터 시작하는 사람들이 보면 지향이 조금 남다르거든요, 다른 사람들과. 본인도 좀 그렇습니까?
Yeah, I think so. I think to run a small nonprofit, you have to both care very much about what you're doing, but also be willing to kind of be creative and entrepreneurial and sort of resourceful. And sort of be willing to pivot a lot, so and be like supporting lots of people all at once. So yeah, I think that maybe takes a particular personality.
공부를 그쪽으로 하셨어요, 혹시?
No, I took college and I got a degree in biology and environmental science, which is kind of what brought me to agriculture, like sustainable agriculture, just understanding ecology and sort of the seeing agriculture as a sort of, and food access, like as an intersection between like people. It's just a huge part of a human experience, and also I grew up seeing a lot of inequities in my childhood and just really have always had a strong passion for sort of equity and food justice as well. So I think this is kind of where it all intersected. But I really learned about nonprofit management just by doing it. Organization I mentioned with the fruit trees, I started when I was in my 20s, and it grew very fast. And so I had to learn while I was doing it. And I took some classes actually here at PSU on nonprofit management, but yeah, it was great. But mostly just learned by doing it and learning from other people. Yeah. Yeah, so there are lots of things that we're looking forward to in the future. We run 5 farmers markets, so one thing in the very near future we're excited about is our smallest farmers market is going to grow. So the Lentz International Farmers Market is a really special farmers market. It really is focused on supporting vendors who are immigrants or refugees, and half of the vendors there identify as immigrants or refugees. And that market is in outer southeast Portland in an area that has less access to fresh and healthy foods. And so that market is very small, but is very beloved. And we just finished, in partnership with the property owner, a sort of remodel of the market space. So now it has an indoor space and an outdoor space. It's very beautiful. We're really excited to grow that market in partnership with a number of community groups and see that sort of the unique nature of that market really shine and bring more people from the community into it. So that's something we're really looking forward to. Really focusing on is really continuing to expand access and equity at our farmers markets. So making sure that folks who are living on lower incomes feel really welcome at farmers markets and are able to stretch their dollars and to access fresh, healthy foods. So we're doing that in a lot of different ways. So for us, local specifically is defined as coming from Oregon or Washington. So Portland is basically right on the border between these two states, Oregon and Washington. And so that's how we define it in terms of who can sell at our farmers markets. Yeah, I would say you can, look at some of our farmers markets and say, oh wow, these are huge. How would we ever start this? But each one of those markets started very small and with a group of very dedicated vendors. So I would say the success of a market is really determined by having some vendors, whether it's 5 vendors, 10 vendors, or 100 vendors, just the vendors being committed and excited about the farmers market and willing to show up every day for their customers and build those relationships and to support one another. And I would say another thing is to have just really clear sort of guidelines and expectations for what the vendors can expect when they come to the market and what shoppers can expect when they come to the market. Yeah, I think really thinking about both the experience of the vendors and experience of the shoppers at the market can be really helpful. I'm trying to think of anything else that would be broadly applicable. I wish I knew a lot more about the farmers markets that you all are holding, and maybe I could learn more about them specifically and share some more specific.
PSU 마켓이 31년 동안 굳건히 자리 잡고 가장 성공한 마켓으로 인정받고 있는 이유는 철저하게 원칙을 고수했기 때문입니다. 보통 지역에서는 좋은 게 좋은 거다, 친하니까 괜찮다라는 것 때문에 쉽게 원칙이 무너지곤 하는데요. 하지만 포틀랜드 파머스 마켓은 로컬푸드일 것, 가공품은 무조건 로컬푸드로 만들 것을 기본으로 하고요. 여기에 매우 세밀하고 정밀한 규칙을 세우고 이를 함께 실천해 나가고 있습니다. 하나하나 까다롭게 보이는 것들이 오히려 더 매력적이고 너무나 매력적인 것들을 보여주고 있습니다. 로컬 브랜드에서의 중요한 가치 중에 하나가 흔들리지 않는 원칙임을 알 수 있는 시간이었습니다.